Good morning, Plant Cannon, and welcome to episode 5 of PCTV Shorts.
I'm Colton Brown.
And I'm Sierra Ruscio.
This week was the week before St. Patrick's Day.
And track and baseball are still starting up.
And this weekend, daylight savings comes up and is coming to an end. Midterms are this week, so good luck everybody.
And our musical is coming up next weekend. Tickets are on sale now.
Seniors, your cap and gown retakes are on the 22nd from 9:30 to 10:30.
The Sean Carter Essay Scholarship opens on April 1st, and the winner is decided on April 30th. It is for $2,500.
This week is the week before St. Patrick's Day.
Did you know that Krispy Kreme comes out with special donuts for St. Patrick's Day?
I did not.
Have you ever even had a Shamrock Shake?
Nope.
That's disappointing. Anyways, we get to have potatoes during the week of St. Patrick's Day.
Next week's lunch starts off with pork tacos and pinto beans.
And on Wednesday, pulled pork with broccoli slaw.
Thursday, we have a loaded baked potato.
And on Friday, ham and cheese sandwich with carrots. We don't have school on Monday, so don't show up.
That's all we have for school news.
But back to the whole concept of St. Patrick's Day.
Let's talk to Sarah Ruscio about the history of St. Patrick's Day.
Good morning, Black Canyon. I'm Sierra Ruscio, and happy early St. Patrick's Day. Have you ever wondered where it came from or why we even celebrate an Irish religious holiday in America? Well, I'm here to answer all of your questions. St. Patrick's Day started in Ireland in the 5th century after their national apostle St. Patrick's died on March 17th, which is the day we celebrate. Although the religion usually prohibits eating meat, they were allowed to eat meat on this day during their celebrations, when they would also drink and dance. But who was St. Patrick, and why did they even celebrate him? He was born in Roman Britain, but he was kidnapped at the age of 16 and taken to Ireland as a slave. When he eventually escaped, he went back to his home country and received religious training. One night, as he was laying in his bed, he received a vision from God telling him to go back to Ireland and bring the message of Christianity with him. So that's exactly what he did. Legends surround his arrival and presence in Ireland, such as him banishing snakes from the Emerald Isles with a quick sermon, him raising people from the dead, and even summoning an entire flock of swine to a ship full of hungry sailors. St. Patrick's used Celtic symbolism and language to teach his religion. He used these symbols and languages to manipulate the pagan worship of the sun in the sky to the Christian worship of the Son of Christ. Some of you may still be confused why we celebrate this holiday in America. One of the main confusing parts of this is that we treated the Irish horribly when they first immigrated here. So why would we put one of their religious holidays into our yearly calendar as Americans? Well, I have answers to your questions. It starts off with the Great Hunger in the 1840s. Now, it's no mystery to everybody that the Irish have lived off of potatoes, as it's a key part to most of their meals and diet. But in the 1840s, a pathogen ravaged through all of the Irish crops and dehydrated most of the potatoes, rendering them inedible. Because of the centuries of British rule that the Irish were under, they were hit some of the hardest by this Great Hunger. Most of their grains were being exported to British countries so that they could survive the famine. Potatoes were one of the main forms of nutrition because they were cheap and easy to grow. To put this into context for how much potatoes were eaten in the Irish during the Great Hunger, the average working male would eat about 14 pounds of potatoes a day, whereas the average full-grown female would eat about 11.2 pounds. During these desperate times, people began eating grass, sprinkling their crops with holy water, and falling victim to disease. Some of these people decided to try their chances in America, but a quarter of the immigrants that traveled in 1845 died because of poor living conditions. They were being transported in cargo ships and old slave ships. Integration into America was very difficult because it took over 100 years. Tensions rose even more when some Irish chose to fight against the Americans and the Mexican-Americans. In the late 1840s and early 1850s, a lot of anti-Catholic and anti-immigrant groups formed, one of these being the Know Nothings Party. The Know Nothings Party confiscated Irish militia weaponry, as well as deported 300 Irish people just because they were a burden on the public treasury. Bloody Monday was one of the devastating days in which Irish immigrants fell victim to violent crimes. Tens of immigrant homes were ransacked and torched, and up to 100 Irish immigrants passed away. To combat this oppression, the Irish people moved into America's political system. Since they were part of the British political system beforehand, they were a little bit more welcome than other minorities. When the Chinese and Eastern Europeans began immigrating to America, the focus shifted on getting them out rather than the Irish. St. Patrick's Day parades became one of their political tools to work their way into the system. The first St. Patrick's Day parade occurred before Irish immigration peaked back in 1762, when Irish soldiers who became indentured servants held their first parade in New York City. Throughout the Irish's suppression in the 1800s, these parades became political statements and displays of pride in their heritage. They gained popularity among Americans, which further incorporated the color of green into the holiday. And this day, that was once a celebration of religion, became a celebration of fellowship and fun. But why is the holiday all about green and clovers? Well, St. Patrick himself used a three-leaved clover as an analogy for the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and the stem represented them all being one. This became a large icon in Irish culture and later became a symbol of nationalism during the 1798 Irish Revolution. But did you know that green wasn't even the original color for St. Patrick's Day? Original paintings of St. Patrick show him wearing blue robes. In the 1780s, blue was adapted as the Anglo-Irish Order of St. Patrick's color. Today, it's still Ireland's official color, and you can see it on Ireland's crest as well as many sports uniforms. Blue was originally shoved out when the British came in and took rule over Ireland and assigned them a symbol with a blue background and a golden harp in the middle. The growing tensions between Ireland and the British and their growing resentment towards the British government pushed them away from the color blue. They adapted the color green and a clover as a symbol of their identity and rebellion. That's all we have for St. Patrick's Day, and I hope you guys learned some stuff that you didn't know about before. Now back to the studio. I remember doing potato sack races with my cousins as a kid for St. Patrick's Day.
Speaking of races, our track team is just starting. I wonder what the rest of our sports are doing.
Let's go talk to Colton Brown about that.
What's up, Black Canyon? I'm Colton Brown, and welcome to PCSN. For these past couple of weeks' sports, basketball has officially ended. However, the team they lost against, Pinnacle, is still in the state championship bracket, and they play Salida on Thursday. The teams that are still in the semifinals for basketball are Faith Christian, Yuma, Skyview Academy, Highland, Salida, Pinnacle, Windsor, Charter Academy, and Century. All these teams will be playing in the quarterfinals to go to the semifinals for first and second place. All the games for the quarterfinals for the basketball state championships are on the 9th. On Thursday, Faith Christian will be playing Yuma. Faith Christian is the number 1 seed, so that should be a pretty good game. Skyview Academy and Highland are also playing. These are some lower ranked teams, but it should still also be a good game. Salida and Pinnacle play, as I said before, on Thursday. And then finally, Windsor, Charter Academy, and Century also play on Thursday. All these teams play for the number 1 and number 2 spot. 2 losing teams for the semifinals will play each other for the 3rd place spot. For rugby, the Misfits play this weekend on Saturday at noon against Highlands Ranch. This past weekend, they won 20-0 against Dakota Ridge. Sam Patterson, Aiden Krasinski, and Josh Ebbs all scored tries on breakaways. Please remember to talk to Mr. Miller if you guys are interested. They are still accepting players. Baseball, however, are still having practices, indoor practices, until the weather warms up and they can go outside and actually catch some fly balls. The first game is on the 16th against Faith Christian. Please wish them good luck if you see any of them. And go to B-Gym at 2:30 to 5:30 if you guys are still interested. They're in desperate need of players, so if you guys want to try baseball at all, you should. Track has a Columbine invite on the 11th in the Jeffco Stadium. Thank you guys for tuning in to PCSN Sports. Again, I'm Colton Brown, and I'll see you guys next week. Back to the studio.
Some of our sports coaches are kind of worried about how daylight savings time ending might impact their practice.
For those who don't know about daylight savings, let's go learn more about it ending. Many of you know that daylight savings ends on Sunday and we will be losing an hour of sleep. However, you may have wondered why our state and country changes clocks twice a year. Seems a bit weird, but there is actually a historical reason for it. Back on April 30th, 1916, during World War I, Germany and Austria set back their clocks to conserve fuel to produce electric power. European countries followed that same year, and the United States officially joined them on March 9th, 1918, with our version of the daylight savings. It was very unpopular, so Congress eliminated it in 1919. Daylight saving time became a local option and was continued in a few states such as Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and in some cities such as New York, Philadelphia, and Chicago. That lasted until World War II, when President Roosevelt instituted a year-round daylight savings time called wartime, from February 9th, 1942 to September 30th, 1945. From 1945 to 1966, there was no federal law regarding daylight savings times, so states and localities were free to choose whether or not to observe daylight saving times and could choose when it began and ended. This understandably caused confusion, especially for the broadcasting TV industry, as well as railways, airlines, and bus companies. Because of the different local and custom laws, radio and TV stations and the transportation companies had to publish new schedules every time a state or town began or ended daylight saving time. By 1966, some 100 million Americans were observing daylight savings times based on their local laws and customs. Congress decided to step in and put an end to the confusion and establish one pattern across the country. The Uniform Time Act of 1966, signed into law by President Lyndon Johnson, created daylight savings time to begin on the last Sunday of April and end on the last Sunday of October. Any state that wanted to be exempt from daylight savings time could do so by passing a state law under new legislation enacted in 1986. Daylight savings in the U.S. began at 2 a.m. on the first Sunday of April and ended at 2 a.m. at the last Sunday of October. And finally, the Energy Policy Act of 2005 extended daylight savings time in the U.S. beginning in 2007, going on 2007 forward. Daylight savings time in the U.S. began at 2 a.m. on the second Sunday of March and ends on 2 a.m. on the first Sunday of November. However, our story does not end there. Colorado legislature passed a law last summer that would make daylight savings permanent here if federal legislation approves it. The U.S. Senate voted unanimously to make daylight savings permanent in 2023, but that has also yet to be approved by the House. Colorado law also said that to make time permanent, 4 other mountain states would have to join us. So far, Montana, Utah, and Wyoming have joined. So either Arizona or New Mexico and the House of Representatives passed the same law, then Colorado would be permanently in daylight savings times. But till then, we are going to have a huge deal losing an hour of sleep this Sunday. Have a great weekend. Don't forget to turn your clocks ahead. Now back to the studio.
We hope you guys did good on your midterms, and that's all for this week's episode.
And now for your moment of Zen. Let's talk to Sarah. Willis, still not the fuck.